All right, y'all. It's time for me to bring in my guest for today's Reecie Colbert Show. She is Dominique Morgan, an acclaimed artist, activist, and TEDx speaker. Dominique's passion lies in dismantling systems perpetuating violence against Black trans individuals. Combining personal experiences with a decade of advocacy and public health expertise, Dominique focuses on sex education, self care, and youth development. She is director of the Fund for Trans Generations at Borealis Philanthropy. Her tireless dedication to social justice empowers marginalized communities to live free from discrimination and violence. Welcome to the Reecie Colbert Show, Dominique. Hey, girl. Hey.
Hey girl, hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. I am a long admirer of your work. You are just such a phenomenal woman. And with this being Women's History Month, I
Yes.
am so happy that you are on the show. And before we were talking about, doing this interview and the lead up to it. And it's like destiny because it's coming together at the intersection of so many important moments, right? We have the conclusion of Women's History Month.
Mhm.
Tomorrow, March 31st, is Trans Day of Visibility. And next month, April, is Second Chances Month. And
Yes.
so all of your advocacy and your activism around these various issues is like kind of converging on this day, on
Yeah.
Saturday. So thank you
Yeah,
for
yeah,
being
yeah.
here.
Thank you for having me. I love your work. I love the conversations that you activate and lead. So I'm hyped to be with you.
And I just have to say, for those who can't see you, I'm loving this pink moment that you have on.
A little piece. Yes.
Yes, yes, giving hair, nails, and fits,
Hmm.
everything, face, all of that. So yes, I always set the stage for the listeners because it's like the cookout on Saturday. It's the day
I
party.
appreciate you. Yes.
Yes,
I came correct for sure. I had to.
absolutely, absolutely. Okay, let's dive into it. You're just such a phenomenal person, like I already said. I'm trying to figure out where to start. Let's start here. Because when we're having conversations around Women's History Month, even around trans visibility and second chances, we don't really talk a lot about philanthropy and the
Yeah.
opportunities that present itself in that space. And with you being the director of the Fund for Trans Generations at Borealis Philanthropy, which is not a space that you have a lot of Black people even having that kind of leadership role in. I want you to talk a little bit about that particular fund, but also around how Black people, women, people of all backgrounds can get involved in philanthropy.
Yeah, I was an executive director of an organization called Black and Pink National for about 5 years, and it was really a crash course in philanthropy.
Mm-hmm.
And Black and Pink's work is around mass incarceration. So not these topics that are warm and fuzzy. We
Yeah.
know we all see the commercials going up of donate to animal rights and
Mm-hmm.
the shelters, all these things. But it's hard to get people to invest money in lives, specifically Black lives.
Mm-hmm.
And so that time I was there for nearly 5 years and I raised about $10 million.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, I have realized that I have the type of personality, the skill to facilitate, and the ability to bring people into topics that they may not be comfortable with, but I can support them in getting comfortable and being invested in it.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so when this opportunity came up, I was like, I'm gonna throw my hat in the ring because you're correct. As a director, I oversee my fund. I am the sole fundraiser. So I
Okay.
oversee $5.5 million per year. I'm a part of 7 other funds, and we are an organization at Borealis that is over $60 million a year in investment.
Mm.
And we're unique because my president is a Black woman
Yeah.
from DC, and 7 out of 8 directors are Black women at Borealis. We are an anomaly.
Mm.
But getting in this was about one, getting knowledge to my people, making sure dollars move to my people. And although I run the fund for trans generations, even within trans community, they're not investing in Black trans people the way they invest in white trans people. And
Mm.
so making sure that I am not losing the importance of investing in Blackness, even if my core topic is around the trans experience.
Right, right. How does that like? I mean, I'm always about pragmatic and helping people walk through these steps. So,
Mhm.
what is that like? Is it an application process? I mean, like, just I know it's a really basic question, but how do you even throw your hat in the ring for something like that?
It's a yes and, right? It is, so much of it is about who knows you. So much of it is about relationships. And
Yes.
even in the second chance conversation, as a formerly incarcerated person, people are always like, how did you do this? I was like, I worked my tail off, but my biggest tool is relationships, and not what
Mm,
people say about you when you're in the room. It's what they say about you when you're not around, how they
right.
describe you, how they talk you up. So whether I have had people be like, I'll get a call. Hey, I need to move $200,000 today. Or we got to send it back to this company. Do you know anybody that does this, this, and this?
Right.
And with my knowledge, I can say, oh, there's a Aya Damon's in Baltimore. There
Uh-huh.
is a Vernus in Texas. They do great work. Oh, can you connect me? Because I got to move this money in 24 hours. So
Right.
there's that piece, but then there's the applications. Many people have seen the McKinsey Scott process where,
Mm,
it'll be multiple levels. There's a large yield. Most people got minimum $2 million.
mm-hmm.
But even with that, there was a decision-making committee that looked at those applications. So out of everything I hope people take from this is, if you do good work, make sure you're a good person. Tie that
Mm,
together,
mm-hmm.
because people fund leaders, not
Yeah.
necessarily initiatives.
Mm. Okay. Mic drop on that one. You're right. It's relationships are so important. And I think that, we have those skills naturally. Many of us do. And then if you
Yes.
don't have it naturally, you can cultivate it. And I think
Yes.
part of it too is don't count people out of maybe being a person that you should have in your network. It's not about being transactional
Yeah.
or about what can you do for me, but sometimes you just never know. Like sometimes you strike up a
You,
conversation with somebody and it turns out like, oh, okay, this is your shit. Like all of this is you.
baby, my one of my colleagues, Shonda Chapman at Miss Foundation, she said people will try to send a truck around over a dirt road when you should lay the pavement first. Lay that
Okay.
pavement. You never
Yeah.
know. I got a $1.2 million gift one time
Mm.
because someone saw me on a panel in the pandemic on Zoom. Now, if y'all think back to the pandemic, people were just showing up however, doing whatever.
Right, right.
This person saw it, and because we were speaking there, we got $1.2 million. So every moment is a moment to let people know who you are, what you do, and to give
Mm.
them the chance to fall in love with you and your work.
Wow. Okay, before we move on to another question, give people the website because I don't want that to get lost on
Yes,
how to get involved.
go to borealis.org. We have the Black Movement Fund, the Communities Transforming Policing Fund, a Disability Justice Fund, a Racial Equity and Journalism Fund.
Oh,
Please come. Hello. Please come lock in with us. There's fellowships. There's multiple ways to bring in dollars, and it's a great opportunity.
okay. Well, I'm taking up. Wait, racial
Yeah,
justice
yeah.
and journalism.
Yes,
Hold on, let me get on
ma'am. Yes,
that.
ma'am.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, but let's talk about something else. Let's move on. You talked about it a little bit with your work in Black and Pink and your work as formerly incarcerated. With kind of getting a preview next month of Second Chances. Talk a little bit about that journey. I watched your TEDx speech, which was brilliant about resiliency.
Mhm.
Talk a little bit about that journey for those who aren't familiar with your background.
Yeah. So February 16th of this year, 2024, I celebrated 15 years post-release. I am born and raised in Omaha, Nebraska. I currently live in Atlanta for the last 2 years. But at the age of 18, I was sentenced to 8 to 16 years in
Mm.
Nebraska Department of Corrections. And I went in and I had to fight. I had to tussle. So I did almost 10 on that 8 with good time and
Oh.
18 months in solitary confinement. Due to overcrowding, I actually was housed on death row for 6 months of that 18 months,
Mm.
and came home February 16th, 2009. I had an associate's degree in culinary management, a bag of songs, and a stick of swab deodorant because it was like $5 on the canteen. I was like, baby, we're not throwing this away.
Yeah.
Not knowing what was next.
Yeah.
And so that journey, finding activism, finding my voice,
Mm-hmm.
figuring out again relationships,
Yeah.
like how do people know me, but really just fighting every day to make something out of what I have been given. And then when I was at Black and Pink, I had this beautiful opportunity to replicate that for others. And no matter where I'm working, that still is a focus of mine. I will always be a formerly incarcerated person. I don't care what bag you see me in, what red carpet you see me in. 56892. I mean, now I copyrighted the prison number they gave me. I now own, but
Wow.
it's where I started.
Yeah, yeah. And that's one of the things that I've seen consistently in the work is how you multiply from where you start, and that benefits so many others around you. It's not just like you said, well, it's not that you just get out and you are like, all right, I need to get everything I can for me. I need to make up for lost time or whatever. It's like, you've done so much work in helping not have the next person be in the same boat that you said in your TEDx, not having to be resilient, right?
Yes, yes.
Talk a little bit, if you don't mind, about that story. I know that you went and got your master's degree. And if I remember the story correctly, and if I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong, you actually ran into, as part of your class, the juvenile judge, right? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Shout out to Judge Elizabeth Serkovich. When they named the street after me back home last July, and the street they named, I grew up on that street. I was 12 years old when I first got arrested, and she was my juvenile court judge. And we, had this history. I'm in the president's library at Georgetown University. I look around the room. There's this woman kind of looking at me with tears in her eyes after I introduce myself. And that first weekend of our class, it's like she's seeing me as an adult, me facing my memories as a young person, her apologizing. The 90s was that tough on crime time, right? People don't talk enough about the Clintons in that. It was, if we're hard on these kids now, it'll make them stronger.
Yeah.
And we unpacked these regrets, and we were in a program that is about supporting LGBTQ plus people, children who were in the juvenile system. And so we were able to build a big project back home in Douglas County to support queer and trans children. I was able to educate her and other judges. And then last summer, when they renamed that street Dominique Morgan Street, she was right there. She flew in from her vacation in Barbados and stood under my street sign. And we've had some beautiful moments. So yeah, 42 years of engagement with this woman. Beautiful. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, that has to feel good, right? I mean, that you came that far and you were able to confront, not even necessarily confront in the adversarial way, but just confront in terms of being able to show like, hey, you didn't do it for her, but to show the system, right, that it should not be about discarding people and being so punitive without some sort of giving people a chance to have a second chance, right?
And to give people chances to grow. I think again, even when the harm has been done to me as a person who's caused harm, I'm aware that we evolve.
Yes.
And so even with her, for her to acknowledge the mistake, for her to bring other judges in, and then I was able to sit down with them and say, this is what we learned from 1992. Let's not do that right now in 2022.
Yeah.
That's how change happens. That's how we activate restoration.
Right. And a lot of people don't know that like the LGBTQ community is disproportionately incarcerated or targeted for arrest and with the carceral system, and has more run-ins. And it's not because obviously there's a bigger proclivity towards crime. It's like, survival things that people are arrested for, and a number of things. And so it always makes me wonder how people get this idea that being trans is some sort of cheat code to like the easy button in life. Like, oh, if I'm trans, I'm gonna get the man that I want, I'm gonna get the trophy that I want. Like, where are y'all coming up with this idea?
Or being trans and being incarcerated means that you having a ball. Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
Pressure. When your body is unsafe, your body is unsafe. And also in the conversation of, even within people who are incarcerated, there is a spectrum of identities. We know Black men are sentenced different than white men.
Yeah.
We see the uprise of Black women who are being sentenced. We saw that Black woman who lost her baby they wouldn't have put a white woman through a jury hearing to even see if they would charge her with a case, right?
Yeah.
And so
That was in
that's
Ohio.
important to discuss, that at the end of the day, there are judges on these benches using their bias and their perspective. And so the more that you do not look like the norm, and in the United States, the norm is white, cisgender, straight, the system is going to hit you harder and have a longer impact.
That's so true. I mean, I'm glad you brought up the case in Ohio, because I had been saying when Roe v. Wade was getting overturned, or even when the elections were happening with issues around reproductive rights, I'm like, y'all do understand that if some MAGA nurse looks at you and they say, no, you didn't have a miscarriage naturally, you did something to that baby, y'all gonna be in jail. Like, that's what they do. They put these laws in place knowing they're not going to apply it equally, knowing that they're going to use it to disproportionately harm and target our communities. Like, come on, we have to like see the bigger picture of this. And another point that I tend to make when we talk about issues around trans women, and I affirm trans women, period. Trans women are women, period. But I always try to, kind of caution Black women in particular, like, y'all do know that we are the most misgendered gender, and y'all do know that, just statistically speaking, there's way more cisgender Black women than transgender women. And so when laws are put in place or policies are put in place to attack them, we it's a big old pool of us. It's like, like you have a little bullseye in the middle, but then we the rest of the damn board that we're going to have to be subjected to it. And so I always try to caution people of like, this isn't something, where we're in competition or where we're enemies, because what you think you're kind of pushing on to somebody else is coming right back to us.
That whatever definition these states and these municipalities are describing, because some are creating a definition of womanhood, they are thinking about a white woman in that vision.
That's true.
Additionally, everything that they're doing, because most of them cannot check your genitalia in a public, these laws around bathrooms, they can't check your genitalia. That would be against the law. So what are they judging that on? Do you look, what is it based on hyper femininity? So let's talk about it. I grew up in a house with my mama who was like, baby, I'm gonna go to the store in my rollers and go get what I need to get. So you also are naming that if a person's perspective on your womanhood doesn't look as womanly as they think, it's cute when they're filming the trans woman in the gym, but the next it's gonna be the darker skinned plus size Black woman with PCOS that is going to be kicked out of the bathroom. And so again, recognizing that we have a lot of work to do. There are varying experiences around these spaces of womanhood, but if we all focus on us all being safe together, there is a stronger front for us. And that is what I want to focus on. There will always be things we don't get. But what we do know is we're stronger together than apart.
Absolutely. And I love that you said safe together, because this whole notion that protect Black women is somehow from Black trans women is the biggest gaslighting propaganda bullshit I've ever freaking heard. Like, how do you say protect Black women and you're weaponizing that against Black trans women being affirmed, minding they Black ass bitch? Like, what the fuck?
How can y'all start a whole campaign of protect Black women but not have no strategy? Every time I look at these people passing laws, I'm like, okay, maybe this is how you do advocacy. But let's take the sports conversation. We don't want trans girls in sports. I have been waiting for them to announce, okay, if we want to invest in girls in sports, where are the bigger scholarships for girls? Where are the bigger endorsements? Where is the government putting more money into the WNBA so women's sport? Like, if we're gonna do it, protection is more access. They don't want more access. They want to say, we did something. And for me, if someone is always saying, I'm protecting you, but I never feel the protection, we need to start side-eyeing that. So if you don't believe me, ask them to show you what they've done to make your life better and safer as a woman outside of banning someone like me from a bathroom.
Right. I agree. Where are the receipts at? Because
if I saw some receipts, I would shut up. I'd be like, you know what? Do a big one, sis.
Yeah. And we've had this conversation about trans sports, trans athletes in sports. And I'm like, first of all, it's like 0.01%. So when you put in a policy to, I guess, dismantle the 0.01%. But what you're going to do is have these little Black girls, like you said, whose hair is not feminine enough for some people, whose appearance is not feminine enough for some people. And we all went to school with basketball players and, you know, other people who they weren't, you know, now, I don't know, now the kids, they got lace fronts and shit, you know, nothing wrong with that. But I'm just saying, back in my day, the basketball players didn't have lace front wigs and, you know, long nails and stuff. So those would be the kinds of people that, under the guise, under the pretext of like, we want to make sure that you don't have a trans person that's competing against my child, those kids. And in some states, they were talking about genital inspection. So you
genital inspection, they're wanting to do DNA tests. And even with that, likely the parents will have, we know kids who could not get into sports because they couldn't afford a physical for 8th grade.
Yeah.
How are you gonna pay to show your DNA? There's a case in Oklahoma where the school board member posted the little girl and said she was trans. The girl looked like her daddy, and then she just apologized and said, "Well, we don't know who's trans and who's not, so it was my mistake." But you had this child getting death threats. So it is a rolling over. And if they get into white people today, when you know how hard this hammer is gonna hit on Black people, we got to figure something out.
I keep trying to warn people, but I feel like we warn people about all kind of shit, and it's just like crickets, you know. And there's just all these battles where they keep gearing up for it and keep gearing up for it. And I think that people don't, when it's not a sympathetic crowd, or they feel like, well, low-key, I agree, then they just be cool with it, not thinking about the next step. So I don't know what we're going to do about that. I don't know what we're going to do about that. Because to your point, what's the strategy? Where's the organization? I don't even necessarily see as many Black organizations that are the mainstream ones, like the NAACP and those. I don't even see them as vocal as how these laws are anti-Black, you know, or things like that. So I don't know. We're going to have to keep trying to sound the alarm. But before I let you go, I want to talk a little bit, you probably aren't expecting this, about your musical career. Because you're like a singer. So what's going on with that?
Listen, I am. I think it's so funny. I was saying the other day, if you would have asked me 10 years ago, like, how are you going to change the world? I was like, it was through my art. And activism came, and it fuels me and it excites me. But art is a balance to that. And so this year, moving to Atlanta was one of those reasons. And, you know, doing work with Victor Jackson and, you know, T.S. Madison is one of my good sisters. And just like, they're like, girl, you need to get back into your thing. So really loving on myself this year, working on a new album and just pushing myself, because I think to anyone in this space, conversation of women's history, if everything we do extracts from us, that is not living our best life. I love the work that I get to do, but my art, as much as it's work, I leave there filled up. And so I'm excited to do some things this year that fill me up and bring me joy and be able to share some stories and some of my voice with the community.
I love that. A Renaissance woman. I mean, a singer, an executive, activist, like speaker,
getting the things.
I love that, because we have such a range of our activities, of our identities, and a range of things that we enjoy. That's why I hate when we have conversations around gender or around race and it's reduced to sex and who's desirable, or it's reduced to sports and who gets a trophy, when there's just so much more to how we exist, why we exist, and what we enjoy doing with the time that we have. So I can't wait to hear more from you on that regard.
Thank you.
So thank you once again for coming to the show. Tell folks how to follow you if they want to hear more from you.
On all platforms at the THE Dominique Morgan. TikTok, I'm trying to get to my 10K on TikTok so I can, you know, we need the multiple streams.
Yes.
And on all platforms. My website is dominiquemorgan.com. And my book, Discovering Your Power, the ebook is available now. The physical books will be available by the time y'all hear this. So go to my socials and I should have a post up. And I'm excited to get that book out there and do some more story work and community movement.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much, Dominique. It's such a pleasure for you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for closing out Women's History Month on the Reecie Colbert Show.
Thank you for having me, sis. I appreciate you so much.
All right. You take care.
All right. Bye-bye.